busy night.
No.
Hi, Councilor. How are you doing?
455, which is a grant appropriation of well, it was originally $175,000. It is now slightly north of that, which I will do the math when we do our introductions. This is a grant appropriation for the Cemetery Division of the Parks and Recreation Department to be funded from the Cemetery Trust Fund established under State's Chapter 13 of the Acts of 1961. The Cemetery Division is responsible for providing burial services for City of Boston residents. The division manages burial records for over 250,000 grave sites and maintains approximately 200 acres of cemetery land. There are 3 active cemeteries owned and operated by the City of Boston's Parks and Recreation Department. They are Mount Hope, Fairview, and Evergreen. We're joined by 3 terrific colleagues and friends. Richard DePino, who is the second Assistant Collected Treasurer, Margaret Dyson, Trust Manager for the City of Boston, and Tom Sullivan, who oversees all cemeteries. He's an important guy. He's got a lot of people under him, which is John Tobin's favorite joke, so it's always great to be with you, Tommy. I'm also joined by City Councilor from District 2, Ed Flynn. Welcome, Councilor Flynn. Did you have any opening comments?
Thank you, Councilor O'Malley, Chairman O'Malley. I just want to say thank you to the dedicated city professionals that we have here. We appreciate your hard work and everything that you do for our city, and would you let your staff know that we have great respect for your staff and the hard work they do as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Flynn. So I believe the correct figure on this grant application, which we will it will be reflected in our new draft that we will vote on at the next meeting, is for $232,000, which would be $140,000 for Mount Hope for expansion and infrastructure improvements, and then $92,000 for Mount Hope's administration buildings HVAC system. Those figures are correct?
That is correct, Councilor.
92 and 140. Okay, so did you guys have any opening statements before we get into it, or thoughts? Or
No, again, Councilor, I want to take this time to thank you for this opportunity to present to the Council and the committee. The appropriation is, as you had stated, specifically for Mount Hope. It is for improvements to Mount Hope, specifically to provide additional burial expansion for our veterans, as well as for our poor population. In addition, the second piece of the appropriation is specifically for the administrative building, specifically the HVAC system. Original to the building, it has seen and used its useful life, and this appropriation will do a complete replacement of that system.
great. And I neglected, this is on me, to announce at the beginning of this hearing that this is a public hearing. It's being televised and streamed online. We ask all members of the public to silence their cell phones and other devices. Folks that would wish to testify may do so by filling out the sign-in sheet, and we'll get to everybody. But I don't know that we have any public testimony, so we can just get right through it. So, you know, I guess this is easy for me. You guys do incredible work. Explain to me a little bit about, you know, particularly veterans and folks who might have some financial difficulties. It's very, very expensive to bury a loved one. It's a double whammy. You're losing a loved one, and then, you know, just the cost of everything. So can you talk about a little of the city's process of sort of absorbing some of the cost, offering discounted, offering free burial plots, and if any of you want to pop in there?
I'm going to turn that over to my colleague here.
Thanks, Councilor. Thanks for everyone for hearing us today. Yeah, so there's 2 services that we're looking to expand for today are the veterans burials. If you're a City of Boston resident at time of enlistment or a resident, you are qualified for that type of burial, and the charge for that is $880 for a grave. Wow. And that's for veteran and spouse.
And what would be the typical sort of market rate?
Right, so it varies, but a typical, we're very low end on a new grave for a private burial up at Fairview Cemetery, and that's roughly $4,000. It's $3,938. Wow. But if you go to St. Joe's, or St. Joe's would be probably the next level up, and that's closer to like $12,000. Yeah. So $880 to a middle of the road cemetery, if you will, and then of course Forest Hills and everything goes way up.
Sure.
But yeah, so it's a substantial benefit for those that certainly deserve it.
And their spouses, you said, so for the veteran serviceman and woman or, and his or her spouse,
That's
pretty
correct.
remarkable.
Yeah, so we work with Veteran Services, they approve those burials, and we physically lay them to rest.
That's great. Do you know how many veterans or spouses took advantage of that last year?
Yep, we, on the veterans burials, we average about 40 a year. And those have been at Mount Hope in the FR Kelly lot. On the city poor, we average about 80 indigent burials a year. Combine the 3 active cemeteries, Evergreen and Brighton, Fairview and Hyde Park, and Mount Hope and Mattapian, we average anywhere from 650 to 800 burials a year total.
Wow. And if it's an indigent burial, is that no cost whatsoever? Or is
Right, so what happens there is the mechanism is a person passes away and is deemed indigent by DTA, Transitional Assistance, and that person receives a permit where a vendor or an undertaker like Casper or Lawler in West Roxbury, they're often 2 of the people that will step forward and help with that. They'll pick up the body, and it comes to us. I'm not positive, but their fee for doing that is around $2,000, but our charge to the undertaker is $276.
Wow.
So that's what we charge for the burial of a city poor. For a while, way back when, we were getting all sorts of people from all sorts of towns. By law, Section 1314 says that each town's supposed to be responsible and take care of their own dead. That doesn't happen, unfortunately, but Boston has always done that and continues to do that. We do just ask that the person be a Boston resident, and we're not hard about that. We just, if they die in the Boston Common, that's an address for us.
Yeah.
That's fine. So we did try to slow down the pace a little bit because it was getting out of hand, because the undertakers from all over Massachusetts were taking advantage of our good price.
Yeah.
You know, so
Yeah.
now it's settled down. I feel good that we're getting 90% Boston residents. You know, some try to play the game a little bit, but we're actually burying people that actually pass away in hospitals here or on the streets of here.
Sure. No, that's great, Tommy. Really appreciate what you do. Again, it's hard. I've known you. I've known your family forever. You just you have an incredibly important job, and you are such a comforting source for so many people in their darkest, hardest days. So really appreciate the great work you and your team does. I mean, this is obviously a no-brainer. I'll be urging our colleagues to support this at next Wednesday's meeting. I guess, Margaret, can you talk briefly about how this is different? This is different from money from a general fund, that this is a trust, and how that works sort of financially?
I think I'd like to defer to Richard on that.
Sure.
So, Councilor, the difference between this trust and the city's operating money, this trust is to support improvements to our cemeteries. The revenue collected through the burial fees is placed in the trust and invested in the open markets through stocks and bonds to make it grow into perpetuity for purposes just like this, to expand and improve our cemeteries, whether it be for expansions or whether it be for the endowment of our cemeteries, whether it be fencing, specifically the administrative building, to keep that in good condition, things of that sort, and that's what the monies are used for. Things above and beyond what the operating budget could not support.
So this is specifically for expansion of services, maintenance, HVAC, but the salaries for individuals would come obviously from the operating budget.
Some of the salaries come off of this too as well.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah. The investments themselves is able to sustain that cash flow.
That's great.
And from time to time, this trust has been used to assist in the operating budget of the cemetery division only.
And are these funds intermingled with other trusts, or is every trust sort of invested separately?
The trusts are pooled together
Yeah.
for investment purposes for economies of scale, but from an accounting standpoint, each one is individual and has its own individual asset.
That's great. And how, I assume, you know, the stock market has been doing pretty well. We've been getting a better return on investment the last couple of years.
We have. The investment program in which this particular trust is in is placed in a moderate risk environment, as I would describe it. Year-to-date numbers, we're at nearly 11%.
Wow.
So even though the stock market is in 20s, because of the asset allocation of stocks and bonds, our exposure for risk is lessened, so that's why the 11% year-to-date return.
And I think most economists would say 11% is a very smart, strategic, and terrific rate of return. So that's great. Do you have any questions, Councilor Flynn?
Yeah, thank you, Councilor O'Malley. I just wanted to follow up, Tom, on the military burial. What type of communication do you have with the VA or getting access? Is it your responsibility to get the DD 214, or is it the funeral home?
Yeah, so we work hand in hand. We receive that from the funeral home.
Okay.
So when they book the funeral, we receive that, and we also receive a copy from Veteran Services and Darrell Miller. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I had the opportunity last Memorial Day to visit Mount Hope Cemetery, and it was beautiful over there.
Thank you.
And it was well kept, and the grounds looked great. So I know the people that work there are doing an excellent job. So
It's a great staff.
it's a great staff.
It
Yeah.
really is. They're outstanding. So I'm very lucky.
No, thank you. Thank you to the dedicated city employees that are here, and thank you, Councilor O'Malley.
Thank you, Councilor Flynn. There's a small cemetery, I think it's a historic one on Walter Street in Roslindale near the Arboretum. Is that one of ours as well?
It is. So that falls under our historicals. We have 19 historicals in most neighborhoods, and that's one of ours.
Wow, that's
Yes.
great. What's the oldest grave going back on record, do you know? I mean, I'm assuming.
It's
that was-
1600s, and it's probably at Eustis and Elliott Burial Ground in Roxbury. Wow. Yeah, 16-something.
Do we ever use any of these funds for historic preservation as well, of the 19 sort of non-working cemeteries?
Yeah, there is an historical preservation fund that Kelly Thomas, my counterpart, works with. I don't know the numbers on what
Yeah.
what she has in the kitty, but there is a fund for historical cemeteries that she works off of that for routine upgrades. I know the brick wall at Gertrude House. Okay. And so was recently repaired. So she's constantly going around.
That's
I've got some
great.
stones to pick up in Westerly that have been knocked over, things like that.
Wow.
So yeah,
That's
she
great.
does a lot of good work.
I mean, you guys do incredible work, and as Eddie said, I mean, I visited virtually many of the cemeteries, and they do look great. You got the men and women that you work with, put in so much hard work and effort, and it's so important for obviously a whole host of reasons. So
Thank you.
I'm
I'll
just
let them know.
delighted to obviously support this, and next year's budget, I hope to increase your budget as well, Tom, because I want to make sure that you guys have the resources you need.
Rich Gormley wants to put a niche wall into the Westerly burial ground. He grabbed me the other day.
I can only imagine. And Rich is a
Less
very
driving to
persuasive
Bourne-
guy. So
Less
he's-
driving to Bourne for Richie. right?
Indeed,
Yeah,
indeed.
yeah.
I love it. Well, I don't have any further questions. If there's any other statement or anything from you folks, we can adjourn this special Halloween hearing. Be safe out there. Thank you for all you guys do. Obviously, we'll be asking for a quick turnaround next Wednesday, and then hopefully I guess just more for my own edification, what's the timeline? If we vote on this Wednesday, does it automatically open the money up, or is there still a lag?
It does.
Great, so we want to make sure we're able to get those resources, particularly
Thank
as we
you,
get into
Counsel.
the fall. So,
Thank you.
Thank you all. I don't
you.
believe anyone's here to testify publicly. Seeing and hearing none. The special Halloween edition of the Committee on Environment, Sustainability, and Parks regarding docket number 1455 is hereby adjourned.